The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, and welcome to a webinar put on by the Waiting Child team here at Gwca. My name is Jessie, and I'm a Waiting Child Specialist, and I would like to talk to your family about adopting an older child. So what do we mean when we're talking about an older child? Typically, we see an older child referred to as a child that's 5 years old and up to their 14th birthday. At their 14th birthday, they technically age out of the China system. A lot of families want to ask us, well, what are some reasons that families adopt older children? We are seeing that a lot of our families are transferring over from the healthy referrals that have been waiting since 2006 and 2007. As they themselves have gotten older, or as their own children have gotten older, we see that families want to adopt a child that's similar age to their children, or they are not interested in maybe having an infant in the home. Another thing to consider whenever you're looking at adopting an older child is the fact that these children do age out of care at 14. What that means for these kiddos is that at the age of 14, whether they're living in the orphanage or in a foster home, the country no longer provides care for these children. So they are either taken back into the orphanage and given training, or at that point they are out on the streets and they are going to have to figure out what they are going to do with their lives. A lot of times we see that older kiddos might have some less significant needs. We even see older and healthy children come through the program, although that's becoming more and more rare. We are seeing a lot of kiddos that have already corrected needs, but not necessarily older and that have never had a type of special need. So a lot of our families ask, how do we start to prepare for adopting an older child that will more than likely remember their orphanage and might have some additional grieving processes. So one of the things that's really important for your family to consider is, what are your expectations for this older child? I think whenever you are looking at adopting a younger kiddo, you might not have those expectations. But whenever you're looking at a kiddo that's maybe 5 to 10 years old, you might have already had an experience with a 5 to 10-year-old that you want this child to also be like, or you might have ideas for what their life is going to be like. So a lot of our families, just some things to think about are you expecting that your child plays Americanized sports like football, or is going to be a dancer? A lot of our families may expect their children to excel in maths and sciences, and I think that's, one of the stereotypes about the Asian culture in general is that they're very smart, where a lot of our kiddos will be really smart, but definitely having that expectation might not be realistic for your family, especially right in the transition process. A lot of our families want to adopt an older kiddo so that they will be best friends with the son or daughter that they already have that's a similar age. And we see a lot of times that that might not be the case right at first. I think another stereotype is that kiddos that are from the Chinese culture are very well behaved and very disciplined, and they will instantly respect you because you're an authority figure. And again, that might not be the case right off the bat. They're going to be like any other kiddo. And another thing is that they'll pick up on English really quickly. And again, some of these things might not be realistic expectations. So definitely sitting down with your family and talking about expectations is going to be something that's very, very important to you and your family. Another thing to think about is, what will this look like to your family? Are you adopting out of birth order? Is your kiddo's identity going to be a part of a middle child now? Are you adopting an older child that's older than your oldest already? Are they close in age to your siblings? What will that look like for your sibling that might end up being in the same grade then as the adoptive child? And another thing is, you're adding another family member to your family. So thinking about splitting the time with your already existing children, or even your partner if you don't have kiddos already, splitting that time is going to be difficult on your family. So starting to talk about what that looks like. Another thing to really, really sit down and talk to your family about as a whole, especially with your partner and parenting, is, expectations, but what will your parenting style look like? So really getting on the same page about, here's our expectations. We realize that not all these expectations might get met with whatever child we bring into our home, but also really looking at, what will we do when that doesn't happen? What will we do if or when, our kiddo acts out. What will we do, as far as discipline? What are our boundaries going to look like with this kiddo? I think a lot of families think, well, they've been through so much already, we don't want to put them through anything here, where really, these kiddos are going to want some rules and regulations, and they're going to test all of those. So that kind of leads me to what are some common behaviors that we see for older children? I think those survival behaviors that we typically see in kiddos are going to be even greater in kiddos that have been institutionalized for a longer amount of time. So when kiddos are institutionalized, they kind of go into survival mode. They're in a group of kids that are also striving for the same basic needs. So we see a lot of times that kiddos might hoard food because of food insecurity, or they might, not be used to eating at a slower pace. So they might shove their mouth full of all the food that they can. Another thing that we see is a regression of behavior. So even though you might be looking at adopting a 6 or 10-year-old, their emotional behaviors and then their physical attributes may start to regress. So you may see kiddos that crawl around on the floor on their hands and knees like a toddler would. You may see kiddos that cry or throw tantrums, very uncharacteristic of what we see as an American 9 or 10-year-old. A lot of our kiddos tend to bond to one parent quickly, and typically it's the mother because they are maybe not used to being around male authority figures. A lack of coping skills, so they can't necessarily cope with all of the sensory items that are around them. So, instead of being able to tell you, hey, I'm scared when you turn out the lights at night because I'm not used to sleeping in a bedroom by myself. So instead of doing that, they throw a tantrum for hours. They don't necessarily have the emotional language to tell you these things, nor do they have the ability to kind of get out of survival mode and be able to tap into their secondary emotions. They're really at their primary emotions, which are anger. So a lot of times they cope with anger instead of appropriate coping skills. Some sensory concerns. So we in America like everything fast and loud. They might not have ever experienced all of the stuff that we have as modern amenities and modern technology. So just thinking about, are we overstimulating them and what that might look like. That might cause them to, regress further. It might cause them to lash out. Institutionalized behaviors, again, we're going to see a lot more of those because the kiddos have been institutionalized for longer. So they're going to learn how to self-parent. They might not need you for a lot of things. They're going to have poor self-regulation. They're not going to be able to regulate when they're tired and hungry. And again, so you might see a lot more of this aggression come out because they are unable to cope. Self-stimulation, so they might rock a lot. They might clap. They might like to bang themselves on items. And it might look very aggressive, but it might be their way of calming themselves down. So they might exhibit poor boundaries with strangers, which is very, very typical. Not knowing the difference between a stranger and a trusting adult, that's going to be a weird concept to them. And then again, attention-seeking behaviors in maybe throwing a fit to get attention. If you think about kind of group living and what that might have looked like for them, they might not have ever gotten individualized attention. So having the ability to be able to teach them what appropriate attention looks like, really praising positive behaviors, maybe ignoring some of the bad behaviors that you might not have thought about ignoring before. So kind of reteaching them that these negative behaviors don't get you all this attention, your positive behaviors will. So when our parents ask, what this might look like for parenting an older child, again, we really want to emphasize that a lot of this goes back to expectations. So whenever your kiddo comes into your home, you're really going to have to learn to set appropriate boundaries with them and really stay consistent. And again, expectations, being a team whenever you're looking at parenting is going to be really important. Maybe setting up some bonding activities for y'all, with this child's siblings if they have them, and then this child individually, and then with your family as a whole. Bonding is going to be something that's pretty scary to these kiddos because they've experienced abandonment in their life. Not only that, you have made them abandon what they knew as their life, which again is really scary for them. So you really want to, teach them that you are a safe person. You are a forever person in their life, and they don't have to go through that loss and grief like they did again. Introducing family and friends slowly to this process. So again, trying to not overstimulate them. Teaching who is safe and who is not safe. It's not safe for you to talk to people out in the community that you don't know if your parent's not there. So bringing in people that they don't know might be confusing to them when you're teaching them about safe people and people that are not safe. So think about everything from your child's perspective. This is going to be really important. All of these foods that you're giving them are weird. They are definitely very weird to them. So you want to think about, what can we keep that's very similar to what they had before, and maybe introduce things a little bit slower. So maybe, asking them what their favorite Asian type of food was. What was their favorite food in the orphanage? Maybe trying to incorporate that and have them teach your family about this. Sleeping is something that we see is pretty difficult for kiddos. They are used to sleeping in a group. They are used to probably sleeping with quite a bit of noise. So sleeping in a crib or a bed in the dark by themselves in their own room, again, might be something that's kind of scary for them. Your hygiene and your routines in general are going to be very, very different from the routines that they are used to. So again, trying to keep some consistency at first and integrating their schedule into your schedule, and then eventually transitioning that out is going to be really helpful. So, maybe letting them take baths with a washcloth, not necessarily dunking them in a tub the first couple of times. Another thing to think about is appropriate touching as far as affection goes. I know, as Americans, we like to hug, we like to hold, we like to cuddle, but they probably, again, are not very used to that living from a group community. So just thinking about, what you're touching and what you running up to them and grabbing them and giving them a hug, they're not used to that. They may think, oh, no, they're hurting me, when really you're showing them affection. Just thinking about their culture in general, is going to be really important. So they have definitely had different types of cultural norms, and then we're bringing them into our family, and we're trying to teach them about American cultural norms and your family's own cultural norms. So all these are just going to be new and different. I think another thing to think about are, what are your kids' emotions and how are they expressing them? So, where we might see that maybe they're feeling mad at you, they might be feeling sad for their old friends or sad for their old aunties or caregivers in the orphanage. So that, again, they might not have the emotional language to tell you these things, or they might not be aware that these things are some of the things that they are feeling, so it might come out in different ways. Another thing to think about whenever you're looking at parenting is you as a parent. So what are you doing for yourself during this whole process? Really implementing some self-care, I know is going to be difficult because you're emotionally probably really tapped out, financially. With an adoption can be expensive, but all of these things are going to be really important to remember that, you have to take care of yourself first before you can really reach out and take care of your kiddos. And last but not least, stay connected. So what we mean by that is reach out to families that have adopted older kids. See what they are going through. I guarantee you're not the first family to ever have an experience that's, maybe a negative experience happening with your kiddo or a really positive one. Reach out to therapists, reach out to your social worker, and reach out to your agency. We can really help set up more supports. So parenting an older child. I know we kind of talked about some of the scary experiences, but I think one of the most amazing things is that you're really going to experience growth and development in a child very, very quickly. So whenever you bring your kiddo over here, you're going to be able to teach them all new things. You're going to get to watch them learn. You might be able to provide a lot of medical treatment that's not possible in China so that they are getting much better care. As they get older, you're going to get them in schools, and you're going to give them an education that would not have been a reality for them in China. So whether that be high school and college, that's something that's going to be very, very special to them and very special to you that definitely would not have been a possibility. You're also going to give your child a new start. So whenever kiddos are in China, they are deemed orphans, and they wear that label for the rest of their life. And it's something that has a lot of shame associated with it. So being able to give them, yes, they will have a new title of an adoptive kiddo, but hopefully your family will instill in them a lot of a big cultural identity, so that they are very proud of the fact that they are Chinese and they are also an American, and that's something that they'll be very proud of as well. And last but not least, you'll be providing permanency in a forever family for this child. So we hear a lot that, this kiddo may have already been living with a foster family for 5 years. That's this child's family. But in reality, we have to think about the fact that this child will turn 14 and will no longer have a family, will no longer have a place to go for holidays, will no longer have a culture or a heritage. They will no longer have connection to that family. So whenever we're looking at adopting an older child, you're providing permanency for this child. So the Pancos family has adopted from us. They adopted 6 kiddos in 4 years, and all of them were older. This is a story that they wrote to our agency, and I just wanted to share a little bit of this with you. They said, so our advice, read everything you can, prepare, take online adoption classes, talk to other adoptive parents, and when you find that child who seems to belong to you, step through the door and see if the doors keep opening. Is it hard? Yes. Sometimes it is, and as you work through the junk that comes with your kids, what our kids have survived and help them relearn the skills that they develop to deal with their lives, then there are the moments when you find yourself in those wonderful conversations that let you know they are going to make it through, make it all worth it. One last nugget, special needs is just that, a special need. Every child is special. Sometimes they need extra love, sometimes they need extra help to learn and read, sometimes they need a little extra medical help. It doesn't really matter. Every child is special. They're the unique person they were meant to be. If it doesn't matter if the path you take is traditional or not, every child needs a family to love them and believe in them and support them. Every child needs love. And that's exactly right, and that's what we see with our older kiddos too. They're in need of a forever family. So as you consider adoption and adopting an older child, just consider all of these things, and please reach out to our agency if you have any other questions or any other concerns about adopting an older child. We'd love to talk to you. Thank you so much for watching this, and again, please reach out to us if you have any other questions.